they were like, if you lose like half a stone, then you're good.
Okay.
And
then messaged and said, please delete my number and I'll delete yours.
and I felt too scared to shout and say, no, get off me in a public place.
Hi guys, and welcome to today's video. So today's video is a bit different, and the goal is for me to feature more women in music on my channel. And this could be my artists, like in my Combining Music with Visuals series, which I'll link below, and also women who work behind the scenes on the business side. So that is what today is about. I'm featuring my friend Rose, who runs an agency/label in Brighton in the UK. And we wanted to discuss women in music, our own experiences, sexism, that kind of stuff. Some of it might be quite shocking, and I'm definitely entering a trigger warning here for body image, eating disorders, sexual assault. There are some kind of tough subjects here, and we've tried to be quite candid and open about our own experiences, some worse than others. So yeah, I hope you find it interesting, and it is very long. It is my longest video ever, so I would guarantee that you pause it right here, go make yourself a cuppa, and come back when you can really sit and get into it, because I do think it's important for this stuff to be told and shared. So here you go. Here is our interview/discussion about being a woman in the music industry.
So first of all, welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you for doing this. And would you like to give a little intro about you, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Rose Raymond Sylvester, and I run a company called RRS Agency, which is a music company. It's a management company and artist development, and it basically helps artists in their career within the music industry by giving them support with recording and production, getting them a booking agent, and their own branding manager, and basically giving them all the tools to get their music out there.
Awesome. So we wanted to discuss women in music, I think was the overall thing, and the topics that come up around that, some high profile cases that have come to light, and also some of our own experiences, just to show people that these things still happen. And I think, so I did a LinkedIn post a while ago, and I basically wanted to share some of the not so good stuff, because I think everyone always shares the good stuff, and that's great. I'm not against that at all. But I wanted to just share some of the stuff, and everything was gender-based. So I just thought it was important to share. And I got a lot of comments on that, just saying, I think there were a lot of women that said, thank you for doing it. So I knew that it does good to share. And there were some men as well that were nice, but just had no idea that this stuff still happened. And I think it's that thing where you hear it and you think, oh yeah, that did happen, or oh yeah, it happens like far away from home. But I think it was good to just raise awareness, and I think a lot of them didn't realize that stuff was still going on. So yeah, I guess our job today is just to raise awareness and let like other young women, or like even younger singers like coming up now in the industry, just to let them know that it's okay to say no, we can talk about stuff, they can ask for guidance, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally.
I read a book recently, and she mentioned, it was actually to do with women and money and earning money and having power at work. But she mentioned like diva demands as well, which I think is another example of language being used, because it's like, are these people being unreasonable, or are they putting on like the best show they possibly can, and they know what they need in order to do that? And they also brought up a point of, if you're traveling from country to country and the food's different and the cosmetics are different, you just want to know that what you're getting is right for you and allows you to put on that show. And that really like made me think differently about it, because I've never considered, I just thought, oh yeah, they're divas, the fame's gone to their head. It's like, but has it? Or are they just asking for what they want? Like, interesting one.
No, totally. And even if like, I'm sure if you typed into like YouTube or something, like singers being divas on stage, it will come up with multiple artists. Like there was one with Rihanna, and she was singing, and then she stops the backing track. She was like, stop, because my drummer can't play in time with them. I mean, it was a bit shady, but she's like, we're not going to do this until we get it right. And there was another one where, you know, someone else will stop and be like, you stop, we're going to do this again because it's not, I can't hear myself. So it's just basically being on it.
Yeah, and being assertive and knowing that you want to put on the best show possible.
Yeah, and if you're an artist, you are essentially your own brand, and if you're the one that's fronting it, and if anything goes wrong, then you're the one that looks bad and gets slated anyway. So
sure.
you know, it's that kind of like battle of, well, would I rather be known as a diva because I'm kicking up a stink about it, or would I rather be just known as being rubbish on stage?
Exactly. And I think you don't have a choice in that. You have to go the diva route.
Totally.
Yeah. Interesting. You mentioned Taylor Swift had talked about like the language.
She had an interview fairly recently where she felt that there were times that being young and being a woman went against her. And she states that there is different vocabulary used for men and for women. For example, a man does something, it's strategic, and a woman does the same thing and it's calculated. A man is allowed to react. A woman can only overreact. I've been quite fortunate in terms of my professional career of late that I've not experienced that. But I think being a female artist, there is going to be that clash.
Yeah, I think I've definitely had a situation where I think the be all and end all was that it was an older man who didn't like being told what to do by a younger woman. And I wasn't telling what to do, but obviously I give out tips and guidance and advice, and I don't think he liked that. And I think it was a gender and age thing for sure, because when it came down to it and I looked into what he did everything that I was saying with the matching the image to music. He was doing that. So we agreed, really. And I think if we'd have had a good, mature conversation about it, then yeah, we would have been on the same page. But I think it was definitely it was the gender and age thing that
I've even had like some experience in the workplace where I was dealing with an older gentleman, not too much older, I guess he was probably in his like 50s, and I would say that what I was doing, he was like, okay, did you do that though? And I'd be like, yeah, I did. And he'd be like, okay, good girl, and would keep calling me out. I know.
No, I can't deal with that.
Like, put me in my place of like, you know, that kind of, but like I say, I feel like nowadays I don't feel like a lot of young men are like that. I feel like a lot of men aren't really sexist because they were born into and brought up within a society that was going against that. And I feel like that the situations that possibly we were in and remember or even go against who are, like I say, a certain kind of generation and a way of working. Because a lot of the young men that I do meet through my work, totally respectful, do not refer to women in that way. So so it, you know, it's not too common now, and like I want to stress that a majority of men, luckily, are now not like that. But there are obviously still some cases, and even some younger men, I'm sure, who will act that way.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely, there's been a big shift lately. And I think we spoke briefly before, like if you think about like in the 50s, women didn't even work. And in the 70s, I think it was only possible then for a woman to get a bank account in her own name without a man and like buy a house. So really, we've come really far in a short space of time. And I think like future generations looking back, it will be like, wow, we're like still in those behind the times kind of situations. But obviously at this current time, we're in that sort of, I think, really interesting time where we're seeing that shift happen now. And from like the Me Too era, that's obviously propelled a lot of improvement as well. And like you say, yeah, I think the younger generations are really switched on. Like I think there will be a big shift between like the next, say, 20 years, I think will be massive, massive changes.
I think especially with female artists coming up today, and especially in the pop genre, where you've got, say, the likes of Miley Cyrus, Dua Lipa, you know, lots of other artists who dress provocatively on stage, like Little Mix as well, dress provocatively on stage, are very sexy. And it's having that thing, and I think they do it really well, and I think it's having that thing of, or that almost that conflict of presenting yourself as very sexy, and having a very sexual image, but then equally being the person to say, no, I'm not doing that. I don't agree with this decision. So it's that kind of thing of being sexy and powerful, whereas usually back in the day, it would have been being sexy and objectified and being told yes or no.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
do. So it's having the two combined. And like you say, luckily, you know, we're having artists and coming into an industry where women can be sexy and talented and powerful and make those decisions.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree. In terms of Miley Cyrus, do you, because I don't know if I read this or how cemented this is, I was aware, I thought that she had over-sexualized herself, so almost she had that power, which I think is maybe, that's not the, I think, like you say, now with Little Mix, we're finding that more comfortable balance. But with Miley Cyrus, were you aware of that? Did you feel like that?
I remember, I can't remember the year it was, but I remember when she came out. Do you remember, like, I think it was the MTV Awards, and she was wearing like that beige, like two-piece, and she was being quite sexual.
Yeah.
I remember at that time, and that wasn't that long ago. I remember at that time that was kind of like oh my gosh, is she allowed to do that? But
yeah,
I think
it was like, how far can this go from this point?
yeah, totally. But I think really, if she's the one that is doing it and she's in control and it's authentic to her, it's fine. I think you know, if it was a bit different, then yeah, it wouldn't be it'd be less comfortable. But if she's the one that's, you know, that is owning it, then yeah, then that's fine.
Yeah, for sure.
She was very powerful then as well. I think it was just more shocking because it hadn't been done before. Whereas if she was to do that now, it wouldn't be as shocking.
No, definitely, that was but up to the bar, I think. But yeah, I don't know whether it was like a subconscious reaction on her part, like, I'm not going to be told to wear less, I'm not going to be told to lose weight, I'm not going to be told all these things, I'm going to do it myself and raise the bar so no one can really say anything. Like, I don't know, I'd like to know more about, like, I'd like to talk to her about it. But yeah, that, I think that does stick in my mind as like a really standout moment.
I think the trouble with my experience is that due to kind of the era that I was brought up in terms of the media, what was going on, what was shown, it was a lot of women being provocative, being very sexual, and then on a male side, there's a lot of men within women not wearing much around them, being kind of like objects and accessories in the music video, just part of like the cars, money, women. And it was very much like a sex sells thing, and that was in society generally. Like if you go to news agents, would be FHM, all that. I don't think they do that anymore, but FHM, all over news agents, it's all about women being sexual. It was kind of all that I had known, and I aspired to be these very sexy women because I thought that's how you knew you were successful. So any kind of sexual remark, any comment, I kind of thought, oh cool, okay, this is it's going the right way for me. So I probably didn't think about it too much then, or if it did happen, I wasn't too aware of it. But certainly in terms of like the workplace generally, I remember, like I said, in that same job in an office, there was this man who was known for being, he was like in his 60s, he was known for being a bit pervy, and he'd go up to the women and give them massages in their chair. And I remember he was like, he asked me what my tattoo said, and he bent down and like grazed my calf, my leg. And so like there was that, which obviously wasn't great, but that was not necessarily, that wasn't music industry, that was just a bad. Can you swear on this?
Yeah, it's fine.
This was shit. It was a shit work experience.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I definitely had some in like retail, and it's just little things. And I think there might be people who think, oh, that's no big deal. But I think you just have to be aware of these things and change. I think language is really important. And like in retail, the men definitely used to make like pervy comments about the women. They used to call the skinny one or the slim girls like fat, or joke about them being fat because they thought that was okay because they obviously weren't fat. And that's as far as it goes. And the intention was that we're having a laugh. I know that the intention wasn't bad, but like that's kind of what we're talking about. That is society, and that is accepted. And there is definitely less respect there for women than there is for men. Like it's not the same both ways.
It's that thing of like, you know, men saying that, or a man saying that. I don't want to say men because not all men are like that, but a man saying that or, you know, some men looking at like, oh, she's fat. But then again, they're using that person's image as that person's like everything, like that person being fat or thin or skinny or whatever, then they're picking up on what they're looking like to make them as if that's who they are as a person. You never go up to a guy and be like, you're fat, because that's not who they are. And it's still that kind of dynamic of men looking at women a certain way. And I'm going to swear again, sorry, but to put it bluntly, like that thing of they're looking at them, the first thing is, will I fuck her?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's up there with how they see your worth or even your identity. Whereas, yeah, you'd never go up to a man and be like, oh, ugly. No. But I've also had some, like, obviously, I guess you have too, like inappropriate messages on, like, on my business page. I've had 2 that stick out. One asked for torture pictures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it went straight in with the little. And another one offered me £4,000 a week for nudes.
Oh, wow. So didn't even like have any small talk, wasn't even like, nope. Hey, how are you? Just
and then and I ignored, and then he like messaged me again as though like I was rude for ignoring.
How dare you?
I know, right?
So rude. Yeah, like I've had messages on my business page like fairly recently with men coming and saying you're beautiful and trying to start conversation like, I just want you to be my friend. It's like,
yeah, I get that. Yeah, and I think people like, they get funny because you think, well, you're not taking a compliment. Like, it's nice to be told you're beautiful, but it's like, it's the place, it's the time and the place, isn't it? If you meet someone in a club or whatever and you're chatting, that's fine. If you're messaging someone on their work page, that's not okay. Like, we don't want that to come into our work. We want to be able to work and do our job and be judged on skills and talent, and it all be professional.
So yeah, leading from that, there was the Jessie Nelson documentary, which I actually suggested one of my artists to watch, who was particularly younger and very body image focused. And again, highly recommend it if for men and women to watch. It's so fascinating in terms of how the pop industry is specifically. You know, obviously we have the likes of, say, Lizzo now, who show you can be talented, attractive, and plus size, or any size actually, not just plus size. But we did have about a decade ago, probably longer than that, shorter than that even, but it was even worse. And that was just basically based on people's idea of a body image or what the image should be to be deemed an attractive woman to make it in the industry. So like I was 18 and I was going to auditions for management companies, major labels, and a management company who was considering me and working with me on a project. And they were pretty high profile as well. They were liaising with major labels. Said that I needed to lose half a stone to really make it. They were like, if you lose like half a stone, then you're good. And at the time, I was anorexic. I was the skinniest I'd ever been. I was starving myself, working out constantly, taking prescription weight loss drugs, like shipped in from overseas. So fully in an eating disorder. And that comment really triggered me and also reaffirmed that my value was in my appearance and my image in this industry. So yeah, subsequently I had an eating disorder from 16 years old, and it's still something that I kind of battle through now, not as much, and it's not as active, but I work hard with it, with mindfulness and eating well to kind of combat that disordered thinking. But that is from that kind of conditioning back, like I say, around in those days, women being objectified and seen in that way, then seeing the women in the media being one body shape, one size, wearing next to nothing, being provocative, which is fine, I'm not bashing that, but that was their worth, that was it. And so like I'd been on a diet since I was like a child, essentially.
Oh my God.
which I'm hoping.
Did you feel like, where did body image or being thin or being sexy fit with what you thought that you had to do to be successful? Like, did you think, oh, I need to get my voice better, I need to create a brand? Like, what were the factors that sort of took up space in your head when you thought about what do I need to do to be successful?
I thought I needed to be sexy to be successful. So
Really?
yeah, so, and especially because it was pop that I wanted to go into, I wanted to be like the next Christina Aguilera. Obviously I wanted to have a good voice, and I trained my voice and I did all that work with it, but I kind of knew that ultimately if I looked like, someone could have a better voice than me, but if I looked better than them, I'd get the opportunity.
Wow. Yeah, and I think that time as well, that's when social media became prominent. I think that's why the Jessie Nelson story is so powerful, because it was that awful time of where, yeah, you did just think everyone out there is skinny and sexy if they're successful, and there was all those horrible magazines that used to like circle people's cellulite, and I don't even know if
as well.
Really,
yeah, it's like look how much they've gained, like, or like gained weight. And even now I'll look on certain online magazines, and all of it, I was saying to my boyfriend, I was like, all of it is weight related.
wow.
Like so and so's put on weight during lockdown, so and so's lost, look at her amazing body, and it's always like fabulous body, or like jaw-dropping figure, or look at her abs. And then not so much with other people with normal shapes.
Yeah, it's just gross. That stuff is gross. And I think if you compare it to men as well, like there are men out there who aren't ripped. Like, I mean, Ed Sheeran, and I don't want to obviously turn it around back to men, like we're supportive of everyone. But I mean, can you imagine if a woman had dressed similar to Ed Sheeran or been that kind of disheveled? Like it's just the contrast is insane, I think, and still even. But just coming back to Jessie Nelson, I think it's just such a cruel situation, because like none of what is said about her is even true. And I think it got to the point where they obviously publicized it on X Factor as well. And I think it just got to the point where that was like a learned thing. It was learned that you troll Jessie Nelson about her weight or how she looks. Like people still do it even just because that's what's always been done. It's not even stuff that they think anymore. And I think that's where it comes down to, like the social media side of things. It's just so dangerous in that sense, and that's why I think everyone should watch that documentary. It's just so cruel that someone has to endure that on that scale for just no reason. Like I just can't get my head around it.
No, exactly. No, nor me either. The difference with Little Mix now, I really love them. Like
I do too.
really, I mean, their music is obviously really, really good, but I love that they are very strong, empowered women. When they were asked about whether they felt that their costumes and outfits were appropriate for younger children, and it's like, we're very confident women who don't feel like we're being inappropriate, but we're dancing. They owned it. It was really, really cool. In contrast, remember the Pussycat Dolls? They were around and I really idolized them. Again, it's kind of, it was feeding into that kind of programmed thinking on my part in terms of the pop industries, specifically about being beautiful and sexy and talented and all that kind of stuff. And they were kind of like the group that women wanted to be and men wanted to be with. And I remember vividly, I was watching a documentary, and I can't remember the documentary now, but I was watching it when I was about 14 or 15 years old. And in the documentary, it showed for some really bizarre reason, I don't know what context it was in or whatever, but it showed them all taking in turns to weigh themselves. And then the camera showed the scales and showed how much they weighed. And I remember thinking that it was like 2 stone, like a stone or 2 stone less than what I was at that time. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a beast. Like that is the normal weight that a beautiful woman should be. And I'm not that. And it was so like, I remember that kind of like really being like a bulldozer to me. And I was like, wow. And so I needed to be that weight to be beautiful and attractive, end of. And I always remember that kind of number on the scale that I needed to attain. And yeah, I still remember it.
Did you think that weight was normal and you were, like you say, you thought you were obese? Or did you just think, oh wow, they're slightly underweight, but that's what I need to do to be successful?
No, not at all. Like I was kind of like, I was in that kind of diet mode at that point, and I kind of thought, okay, this is what an attractive woman should be like. That is an attractive woman's weight. And I didn't really think anything of it other than that. And I did feel that I was the fat one, and I needed to get down to that weight to be normal. And because I didn't have any other body types, and they certainly wouldn't show any other body types weight on TV. But then obviously they didn't. I was too young to be like, well, they probably have nutritionists and they have personal trainers and they work out all the time to get those like ripped stomachs and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I do think they, or not them as people, but that initial song, I do think that is the embodiment of like women not helping out women.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that thinking, wow, okay, we've got no one.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, unless I'm wrong, but I know that it was written by, I think it's CeeLo Green, but you can tell it's written by a man.
Yeah, for sure.
And there was even another song, which I loved. And it's a really good song. I mean, it's a well-written song, but I was looking at the lyrics the other day and I was like, wow, that's really inappropriate. Like, and also feeding into that kind of behavior that for anyone, it's okay to treat someone in a really sexually inappropriate way. So like, the lyrics were like, it's funny how a man only thinks about you got a real big heart, but I'm looking at you got real big brains, but I'm looking at your girl. It ain't no pain at me looking at your. And then her response was, I don't give a, keep looking at my, because it don't mean a thing if you're looking at my, I'm gonna do my thing while you're playing with your, like, I'm gonna still be me and be sexy whilst you're playing with your dick. It's fine. Like, that's not uncomfortable or inappropriate at all.
With that as well, it's not even just promoting that side of things, it's saying the other things don't matter. Like specifically, it doesn't matter, like none of the things matter. And like listen out.
It's like both ways. It's okay for like a man to be like, well, you're great, but I don't really care, I'm looking at your tits. And then on another point, it's like, well, I don't care, I'm going to just ignore what you're doing even though you're masturbating or something, like, and looking at me.
Like, that's fine, carry on.
Fine. I'm just going to ignore that. I'm going to ignore it.
I'm really clever, but it doesn't count, so carry on.
I'm just going to still do my thing while you're playing with yourself. I don't care.
Oh God.
Yeah.
See, this makes me think that things have got better, but obviously there is still a long way to go.
Yeah, I think there's a long way to go in terms of, like, being a girl's girl, women standing up for women and empowering each other as opposed to bringing each other down. And likewise, I think there's a bit of a way to go in terms of the vocabulary that men use, and it's across the board.
Yeah, and I think that language is the learned behavior, isn't it? That's ingrained, and it's that feeling of, oh well, it's always been like that, so it's fine. And I think actually the awareness that it's not okay is step one. Like just hearing people say, actually, I'm not going to be spoken to like that because it's not okay. And then obviously you have to give the women the confidence to actually say that as well. Like obviously some people are fine with that, but others would really struggle with that, I think. Especially when it comes to power as well and authority. Like, I think we're always taught to like, be good, just be quiet and get on with it kind of thing. And I think that's what needs to change. There's a lot of books I've read just around like women and money and power. And it's insane, the learned behavior that is from women as well as men. But yeah, onwards and upwards.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of men remembering that women are equal in terms of not seeing their worth in what they look like, which a lot of men do. But there's still that lad culture, isn't there, sometimes? Yeah. Did you ever get wolf whistled walking down the street or something? Yeah, so like that would happen.
Or like when they're like, oh, smile. It's like, I'm not here for you.
I know. Yeah, that was the worst thing, when someone would be like, smile, it might never happen. That was said to me. And I remember like walking down the street, and I must have been like 11, or 12, I was walking down the street and I'd have all these men beeping at me in their cars, and I had no idea why they were beeping. I was like, I'm walking on the pavement, why are you beeping at me? It was because they were just doing that.
That's so young as well to
it's really young. But like I say, I think it is just that changing of vocabulary, you know, changing that kind of lad culture so that women aren't seen as something to bang, and there's more to offer. And then equally women being kind of supportive of other women, whether you know, that be women being very confident and sexual and with how they're looking, or otherwise, regardless.
Just owning who they are. And I think as well, like in terms of going forward, and obviously we aim to be there for younger artists that want to talk about a situation, or they want advice, or they want to be able to, like, to be given that confidence to say, no, I'm not comfortable with that. I just think that's a really important point. I've been networking a lot. In the first year of my business, I was networking a lot, and I had a situation where I'd arranged to meet this guy in a cafe at a set time. So I got there early, I got a drink, and then he messaged me on the dot of the time we were supposed to meet saying, oh, the parking's too expensive, come out and we'll drive somewhere else. And I was thinking, no. And the parking wasn't that expensive. It was cheaper than the coffee. And I would have bought his coffee. So it really wasn't a lot. So I gave him like some options of where to park, and there were like some residential roads as well around. So I like gave him loads of options. And he was like, nah, just come out and we'll go somewhere else. And I was like, no. And I'd already bought a drink, which wasn't the main factor. Like, I was definitely not going, but I did feel uncomfortable saying no. It wasn't like, fuck off, no. It was like, oh no, I've bought a drink, I'm meeting someone else shortly, like I don't have time to go somewhere else, like we've arranged this. And he messaged back and was like, oh, maybe another time then. So I just put okay, thinking, oh, I really avoided a situation there. And he then messaged saying maybe not, and a big smiley face, and then messaged and said, please delete my number and I'll delete yours. And I was like, and my heart's racing now telling it. And I just thought I've really avoided a situation there. But that's the closest and like I said, I have been lucky. Like that's the closest I've come to a serious situation, I think. And I don't know what the hell would have happened, but you shouldn't. I think, again, it's like, I think some people wouldn't have had the confidence to say no and would have felt like they had to get in the car. And I just want to reinstate, like, always meet in a public place. Don't do anything you're uncomfortable with, and just have the confidence to be like, no way.
No, for sure. I'd had a couple or a few instances where there was sexual assault and everything involved. So I had that expectation that if I was to go anywhere and there was a man there, that there was a possibility of that happening. Like there's an instant where I was on the train because I used to commute from Guildford to Brighton, and there was a man who basically intimidated me and touched me inappropriately, and I felt too scared to shout and say no, get off me in a public place, because I didn't want to embarrass him and embarrass me by raising the alarm with other people there. So I just kind of endured it, and he basically cornered me on the train and like blocked me with his arm, and then was like trying to touch me. So it was not very good. So going into auditions and going into like where I was meeting a man, and more often than not, I think 90% of the auditions that I went into were all run by men. There was always that kind of mental preparation I had of, okay, if I go into this audition, what if this happens? What if he says, okay, you've got this, but you need to do this for me. What do I need to say? Like, how do I say no? Because I was also a people pleaser. Still am a little bit, but I was also a people pleaser. And I hated saying no to anyone at all. And especially if you're quite shy and you don't want people to dislike you, especially if you're going into a job, like you want to get the job, then, and you're saying no to someone, it's horrible. It's a awful feeling.
Yeah, and I think with those situations as well, you're always at a disadvantage because there is that sense of power. When you were younger going into audition, like you say, it was mostly men. Obviously, they're not going to be your age. They're going to be probably 20, 30 years older than you. And I think that instantly like upsets that balance. You're already going in knowing that you're the like lower person, so to speak.
Yeah, but it's why I'm particularly quite hot on it in terms of sending my artists, especially if they're younger girls going into auditions. I remember I would always take someone with me. Going into any audition, you were expected to have a certain image, a look, and not even branding, by the way, not an image in that sense, but look attractive.
Be hot, yeah,
be hot.
What do you say to your girls then when you send them into auditions or anything? And like, do you look for red flags before it even gets to that point as well?
Yeah. If I sense any red flags, then I won't even send them. If it's a proper organisation, I'm sending them to an audition. If they're under 18, they would have a parent with them, so I don't really worry too much. I'd still say to them that you need to, if you're not comfortable, if you don't want to do anything, don't do it. And I kind of drill that in at an early age now because it's so important. But if I was sending someone who was like 19, 20, the same age as me when I was going to these auditions in London, then I would, if I say that if you're feeling uncomfortable or you're not comfortable with what they're asking you to do, whether it be or anything, it doesn't have to be sexual, it can be anything. Say no, leave. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do it just because they're asking you. You can just say no. And also, like you say, look out for red flags and what you feel, because as a person, in your gut when there's something that's not right and you're in a situation that's not right.
Sure.
But I feel like we kind of went through it ourselves back, like, and experienced all those kind of situations. And so now that we can kind of hopefully with our jobs guide that you need to have that autonomy and
definitely just
and confident.
Just to be that person that is that almost authority, not authority above them, but that person that is there to guide and that they can come to, because I know I felt like I have no one to go to about these things, and I know, I'm guessing you didn't when you went to auditions. I was the same with that. Like I went to meet a band that I was like auditioning for, and I instantly just took housemates with me because it was like, it just wasn't even a thought. I don't know, it just did it without even thinking. Okay, so is there any other stories you wanted to share?
Well, like my own personal experience of obviously going into auditions was that, being mindful of going into a situation that I would be uncomfortable with. At that time, I was trying to be an artist in my own right. I was writing songs, I was going to auditions for Sony, for management. I had an agent at the time, and the agent was giving me like modeling work as well as like some extra work, just basically ways of me getting into that industry. And they sent me an email, which I think I sent to you, which said, I think this was back in 2008 when I was 18, gosh. And they said, and it was by a woman as well. The woman sent me this job and she said, are you up for doing some modeling with another male model? And I think I was like, yes. She was like, it's adult material. And because I was 18, I was also a very young 18, so adult material to me was like, I don't know,
underwear or something.
it was underwear. It wasn't anything. So I was like, okay. I was like, well, what kind of adult material? And she went, it's porn. But don't worry, they get to use a condom. And I was like, oh, great, thank God, because I was on the fence before that.
Now that's still the deal.
Now that he's allowed to wear a condom, I'm sold. Like, that's fine. And obviously I declined that and said, no, I don't do that kind of thing, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I don't.
It's how they think. They don't have to just go in with that straight away. Like, oh, this might not be what you want, but we have got this, and like spell out all the details rather than thinking they can like hook you to the point where you'll be like, oh, okay, and just keep going along with it. Like, just spell it out in the beginning. You'll save everyone's time.
That was kind of like that whole thing of sex first, anything else second. I'd get jobs. I would get quite a few porn offers, which obviously I didn't do, and other opportunities. And whilst I was kind of going into auditions, there were situations with the college that we went to in terms of teachers,
inappropriate behavior with students, and it was a number of students as well, with a variety of male teachers. So again, it was just kind of like, and I remember thinking like, it's just rock and roll, like that's what you do. It's not like a normal
like boring college. It's like a crazy rock and roll college of like sex and drugs, and you know, you can get in a relationship with your teacher, that's fine. Like it's really not. And yeah, so that was all going on. So it was very, very much really kind of drilled into me, that whole systemic thing.
How did you feel like going to those auditions and having those experiences, and then obviously going back to college where you ideally would go back and tell someone about that and have a mentor to guide you? How did that feel? Like, I'm guessing you felt like you couldn't even tell anyone at the college because it was just that was how society is, right?
Yeah, it wasn't even a thing. It was so normal. It was so normal to go to an audition and maybe being asked to do something inappropriate for a job, or to show something you know, that you weren't comfortable with. And at that particular place, it was very common for you to kind of, for the older male teachers to talk to you a certain way, talk to you outside of the college, and talk to you inappropriately, or flirt, or be in a relationship. So it wasn't really even like a thing of, oh, I can't tell anyone, because it was so normal. And I was really lucky. I had a really good close group of friends, both male and female, who I did talk to and be like, oh God, this teacher said this to me again, it's so uncomfortable for me. And they're like, oh, that's so annoying, just tell him to F off. So I did have that support network that I did go to, but it was kind of like oh, this has happened again, you know. It was so normal. Whereas now, you know, I have a little girl, and if if that was to happen with her, like I've gone a rampage. Like it's just it's not a thing.
It's not okay. Did you ever consider going to someone like higher up at the college, or a female teacher, or I know we had like occasionally careers guidance and stuff, like anyone kind of more outside and saying what had happened? Or did you literally just think this is life?
Yeah, kind of just thought this was life. Also, I was in a relationship with a teacher at that point. I didn't realize that he was also in simultaneous relationships with many other students, and I was 16, 17 when it started, and he was in his 30s. And then there was also other teachers as well, and you kind of, and also at this college it was known that so-and-so teacher is going out with that student, and this teacher is really pervy, and he's talking like sending messages that are like inappropriate about drugs, and trying to get you in his studio for some work. And it was kind of like everyone knew. And so I didn't really feel the need to like bring it up, because I feel like both the teachers knew probably it was going on, and obviously everyone in terms of like who we were friends with, they knew it was going on. Not necessarily exactly with who, but they knew it was happening. So it really didn't need to be brought up. I think if you're kind of in an environment where everyone knows it's going on but it's not said, then why would you feel like you need to raise the alarm? Because it's not an alarm to be raised, everyone knows.
And again, it's that thing of authority, like if everyone in authority is doing this, well, it must be right. But sadly, I think that's what they play on, isn't it? Like,
yeah, and it was a musical kind of like sex, drugs, rock and roll. Like it was that kind of like, we're cool. We're not like a normal stuffy college. We're like this cool music college. So it was a kind of different vibe. So
yeah, that's crazy. I mean, yeah, I was aware some things were going on, but not to the extent that you said. But I think my class, I think there was one other girl in my class, and we very much hung around all as a group. And I think I was just constantly surrounded by friends who were boys. And I think that was probably a safety net looking back. But I think even the college I went to before that, I know that the teachers always used to buy the students drugs.
What?
Yeah. Like, yeah, and that was normal. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that happens. They go to the parties, and like looking back, there's like 30, 40-year-old men going to parties with like 16, 17-year-olds and getting them drugs. And as far as I'm aware, there was nothing inappropriate sexually, but there was very few. There's about 4 girls in a class of guys, so I don't know if it was just that
thing of being in a position of power, a position of trust, and it being ethically wrong. Even that's just because of the job. Even if you weren't part of that job and you went to a party and you were like 30, 35 giving 16-year-old drugs, it's still like a no-no.
Mental. Like, can you imagine now having like a boyfriend that goes to a party with 15-year-olds anyway, regardless of the drugs or the sexual assault. Like,
oh, that's so
oh
yeah. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I'd say in terms of anyone being an artist is obviously, like you say, looking for the red flags, going into auditions, knowing what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with. And that can be, like I say, about anything, whether it be sexual inappropriateness or just anything that I remember I had an audition and I sung the song, nailed it. I think this was with Sony, and I nailed it. And when I was terrible at auditions, I was so nervous, I would never normally nail them, so I was like really confident, and he was like, yep, that's great. It was at Pineapple Dance Studios. He was like, yep, that's great. He was like, can you dance? And I was like, yeah, I can throw some shapes, like, yeah, I'm a good dancer. And he was like, okay, well, can you dance for me right now? And I remember like thinking, oh wow, I don't want to do this. And I did say no, but again, this was like when I was very young and I didn't like saying the word no, so I kind of made an excuse and said, well, I just deal better with choreography, so I can't. Obviously I didn't get the job because I did say no to that, but it's that thing of like, I didn't feel comfortable doing that, so I didn't do it. It doesn't matter what it is. If someone's asking you something that isn't authentic to yourself, that you just don't feel comfortable with, then just say no, don't do it. There are lots of other opportunities, other jobs, and just because you've said no to that, don't feel like you've missed out on your big break, because if you are saying yes to something, then they may ask you something down the line, more things that you're probably not comfortable with because they asked you that thing in the first place. And then you're going to have that conversation again.
I think definitely, just be picky, and like you say, if you're not comfortable with it, then it's not the ideal job for you. Like, as much as it could sound amazing on paper, there will be something more suited to you, that obviously where everything that involved is what you're comfortable with and is true to you.
And then the other thing, to also have a mentor. So whether that be within an organization such as something like mine, RIS agency, where there are people working behind you, and you've got departments working for you and specific people who are working for you, like a team, or just having a mentor. Like with my agency, I'm quite lucky in that I've got a few people that will be working for that artist and so it's a team, but they'll also have a mentor as well. So if you don't have that kind of organization behind you, still get a mentor, still have someone that you can talk to, because having that person who's in the know, who's in the industry, who can guide you, is a kind of imperative in any business, regardless of what you're doing, that you can kind of talk to and make sure that you're doing the right things in your career, but also having that person you can talk to about personal things, because that will have kind of eke into your professional life, and especially in the music industry where you're kind of, if you're an artist, especially if you are female and you're going into a pop industry, actually male as well, going to a pop industry, it's very toxic. You're basically asking people to judge you, and things like anxiety, depression, eating disorders, they are so prominent now, especially with lockdown and the pandemic, that you need to have someone to talk to, because it's going to be you're going into an environment that's really toxic for your mental health. So having someone that you can kind of confide in and talk to will be hugely important for your mental well-being as well.
Yeah, for sure. Just the power of a mentor, just someone who you can share if you do have any of these experiences. Hopefully you don't, but if anyone does, having someone just to share it, I think, and get advice from it just halves the problem straight away. And just having that person that you trust, you can call on if you do have to go to a situation and you're a bit iffy about it, then take them with you. And like you said, mental health, just look after your mind as much as you look after your voice and your body, and it is important. And I think if you want the long-standing career in the industry, you've got to sort all that stuff first. Like when I coach on branding, mindset always comes into it, because it's that having the confidence to be you, saying no to things you're not comfortable with, finding out what jobs are aligned with you and your goals and what you're happy to do. So mindset, mental health is really important. Get a mentor. Yes,
100%. I really wish that I had a mentor. At that time, I thought that was having an agent or a manager, but when you kind of, certainly back then, and actually still prominent in today, a lot of people will generally see the money first as opposed to the person, so will act on their own best interest as opposed to yours. So I wish I kind of, and that's what I was kind of looking for, because that's what I thought you needed to be successful. It's not. I think if I wish I'd had a mentor that I could have gone to and been like, oh, this happened, and then you'd have that person be like, no, that's not okay, that's not how, that shouldn't have happened to you. So yeah, so important.
So is there, like, going forward, is there one, I know we've shared a lot of advice, but is there one bit of advice that you would say is the most important to anyone who wants to go into the pop industry, who's a bit younger and just a bit unsure?
Yeah, I would advise women, young women, to become as knowledgeable as you can within the industry that you want to sign into. So if you want to get a major deal or whatever, don't be kind of naive and assume that they know exactly what they're doing and leave all of your affairs and sign over your life away to them so that you can concentrate on like your dream. You need to really be business minded. You need to be a businesswoman, because you are your own brand and your own business that they are selling. So understand the contract you are signing, hugely important. If you do have a contract with anything, get it checked over and looked over either by a mentor or by a lawyer, anything like that. Write your own songs. That's kind of imperative in the industry nowadays anyway. So always write your own songs or collaborate with other people as well. Great way to network. But own your masters. Lots of stuff has come up in the press recently regarding singers. Taylor Swift was one of them, who had her masters owned by someone else that she couldn't play her own songs. That's kind of just the kind of short story of it. So own your masters so that you are in total control of the songs that you write, and you're getting obviously all the money that you deserve from the songs that you've written. All of this then gives you power in your business as an artist. You become a CEO of your own brand, which is incredibly important in today's industry. So yeah, I would say it's not the funnest part, especially if you want to be an artist. If you're, say 16, 17 years old and you want to be on stage and, singing and doing music videos, it isn't the most glamorous part of it. But if you can get clued up with music business now, then you'll have a long-standing career along the way.
Definitely. And I think you can always form your own team as well. You don't have to, I think definitely having a knowledge of everything, you need that. You need to know about your money, your finances. You need to know what's going in, what's coming out, not just bury your head in the sand with stuff like that. Same with contracts. But I think form your own team. Like I've talked about this before in videos. It isn't you have to do everything yourself, or you have to sign an awful contract with a major label. Not that they're all awful, but they're the extremes. You can form your own team. You can sign to an agency or a smaller label that you feel is a good fit. You can freelance people as well, get people on a freelance basis to help you out. Just there are other options, I think, and it's about discovering what's right for you and basically figuring out who you are, what you want, and having full confidence in that.
Yeah, definitely. I think finding out all the roles within the industry, like you say, and getting involved with it, not just leaving it to other people. So important.
And knowing that you're capable of doing it.
100%.
Yeah.
If I can do it, anyone can do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting and for sharing your stories. I think it'll be really helpful in just inspiration for other people to like come forward and ask for help if they need it, and also for like men and other women just to raise awareness about like what happens.
You're welcome. So, thank you for having me.
That's all right, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, speak to you soon. Bye.
I just wanted to say a big thank you to Rose for doing this with me and for sharing her experiences. I think it will help so many other women to talk about their problems and find a mentor and stuff, and also making men aware of what's going on so they can be more supportive too and challenge other men's behaviour. Rose's agency has recently had a rebrand, so she's now RRS Music Management, and I've linked her below. We are going to be working together in the future as well, which is very exciting. So yeah, go check out her stuff. I've linked all her stuff below. And thank you, Rose. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and found it interesting. See you next time. Bye.